That's the path to 1 million.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that going to happen?
My guess is it's going to be this year.
It's going to be this year.
You look at all the factors that we're facing. You have...
That's a 10x.
Bitcoin has 17x in the past. There is no upper bound to Bitcoin. So there are people that talk about diminishing returns, right? But if it's a step change, just like the failure of the German mark, it's not a gradual thing and there's no upper bound. It's just gone. And you use a new thing now, right? It's like, yeah, we don't use horses for transportation anymore. We came here on a car or on airplanes and whatnot. So we use a new thing. And Bitcoin is that new thing because it's 100, if not 1,000 times better than anything else used as money in human history. But back to the point, what do we have? We have MicroStrategy buying nonstop. We have ETFs, which are a doorway to legacy fiat money.
In his opening remarks, Samson Mow discusses the most recent developments in the Bitcoin market and stresses that volatility is a normal aspect of the cycle. Mow sees this as a necessary reset prior to Bitcoin's next significant leg higher, while some investors worry about temporary declines. He notes that the long-term trajectory of Bitcoin is still supported by market factors, such as institutional demand and worldwide liquidity patterns. The growing dominance of Bitcoin, which Mow sees as a reflection of cash flowing into the strongest asset in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, is one important point he stresses. Bitcoin consolidates as weaker hands give way, preparing for a possible supply shock that would push prices sharply higher. He also emphasizes how ETFs and sovereign interest are driving mainstream acceptance, which is happening more quickly than most people think. If you're intrigued by bold predictions and deep financial insights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more engaging content. Thank you for your support and enjoy the video.
People were expecting a lot more of it, honestly. And I think that's something that you've said on recent interviews, that Bitcoin is massively undervalued. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've been predicting 1 million for a while, and hopefully I'll hit sometime, but I believe this pullback is very normal because the altcoin market was overheated. If you look at XRP, Ripple, it was $3. That's ridiculous. With Bitcoin at 97 or so, Ripple is still at 260. And then you have Solana and everything. Everything is overpriced right now for the altcoins. So I think it's normal. We come down, they shake off, and then we go back up. Bitcoin dominance increases again. But Bitcoin dominance is really intellect measurement, like how much money is being allocated to altcoins. And that needs to drop before we can take off again, I believe. But overall, Bitcoin is undervalued. And I think even at 100K, 150, 200, it's still undervalued.
And what's the case for it being undervalued?
Well, there's just so much demand for Bitcoin right now from MicroStrategy, from the ETFs, from nation states, from ordinary people buying and hodling, that I don't think people have fully realized that most of the year's supply of mined Bitcoin is already gone a few times over. So you have to understand there is ultimate scarcity in Bitcoin. And I believe the understanding of ultimate scarcity is very far away still. People just can't wrap their heads around there only being 21 million. And when the price drops, people kind of feel confident that I can get it later. But then Bitcoin rips and then there is no later. Like imagine being able to buy Bitcoin at $10,000 a coin. Again, it's not possible. And this milestone of 100,000 will be gone again in time. So there's two things I would say. One is there are obviously OGs or old hodlers that are going to sell something and, buy a house, maybe enjoy life a bit. So there will always be some coins that are sold outside of the mined supply. But there's also roughly 2 million coins that sit on exchange for market making, trading, and arbitrage. And those 2 million coins, it's dropping obviously. Now it was at more than 2 million before, but now it's at around 2 million. But that is enough for the coins to drop the market. And a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin being a 24/7 market as well. So this drop, I believe, is related to the tariff war. American, Canadian, Mexican, well, we're all going to tariff each other. And it's just panic. So Bitcoin being the only 24/7 liquid market is the only thing that can react immediately. So it's sort of like the market sentiment is taken out on Bitcoin. We're the first to move, the most volatile, and the biggest move. And then the equities markets and everything else follows after that when the markets open. Such an antiquated concept, right? But that's what it is. But going back to the point, those 2 million coins is enough to move the market a little bit. And the impact of those 2 million coins, I believe, is becoming less and less pronounced as we increase hodlers. So if you break down the schema of who impacts Bitcoin price, you have the hodlers. Zero impact. They're just sitting on the coins. And in ways you can look at it, they're coiling up that spring. Then you have the buyers, the people that are DCAing either like by day or by month, or you can say MicroStrategy is also in the DCA category, and hodling, but they're actively in acquisition mode, and Metaplanet, and like you said. Then you have the traders, which is kind of that 2 million coins. So that is kind of what is driving the market. And Bitcoin will always be volatile because you have that slush fund of coins on exchanges. But that is going to be drained over time, and we do see that. And it makes it more pronounced, the coil-up effect from the DCAers and the hodlers. That's the path to 1 million.
$1 million Bitcoin, Samson. When's that going to happen?
My guess is it's going to be this year.
It's going to be this year.
You look at all the factors that we're facing. You have...
That's a 10x.
Bitcoin has 17x in the past. There is no upper bound to Bitcoin. So there are people that talk about diminishing returns, right? But if it's a step change, just like the failure of the German mark, it's not a gradual thing and there's no upper bound. It's just gone. And you use a new thing now, right? It's like, yeah, we don't use horses for transportation anymore. We came here on a car or on airplanes and whatnot. So we use a new thing. And Bitcoin is that new thing because it's 100, if not 1,000 times better than anything else we've used as money in human history. But back to the point, what do we have? We have MicroStrategy buying non-stop. We have ETFs, which are a doorway to legacy fiat money. If you go back to all the previous bull runs, where we get bogged down is the exchanges, because that's the touch point, right? That's how you convert fiat into Bitcoin.
Samson Mow thinks there will be a significant change in the financial world if Bitcoin hits significant price milestones. Bitcoin will be worth half of the entire market capitalization of gold at $500,000 each. At that moment, central banks might start reallocating their holdings of gold in favor of Bitcoin as a reserve asset. To expedite this shift, some even suggest that the United States may think about selling its gold stockpiles in order to purchase Bitcoin. Samson also draws attention to El Salvador's changing Bitcoin regulations. He has a different perspective on the matter than those who believe the government is caving into pressure from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. El Salvador has changed its Bitcoin rules to conform to IMF agreements, but Mow sees this as a calculated step to keep its Bitcoin first philosophy while balancing international ties. Also, a quick reminder, only a small percentage of viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy deep dives into crypto and finance, hit that like button and subscribe. It's free and helps the channel grow. Now let's get back and hear what he has to say.
And if you remember back in the old bull runs, it was like Kraken's backlog for KYCing people was 3 months long. Coinbase, same thing. That's the bottleneck, because to comply as an exchange, you have to KYC everyone, and you don't keep 1,000-person KYC team, right? You have to keep a team that you can feed, and you can't scale it up that quickly. So that's kind of where it tapers off. But with the ETFs, there is no bottleneck anymore. Central banks can buy ETFs. So any demand for Bitcoin can now be satiated without any problem whatsoever. And that is really big. That's why actually I thought 2024 was going to be the year we hit 1 million, because I don't think people fully understand how big that is. Central banks can buy ETFs. There is no barrier for fiat money entering Bitcoin. But I think this year we'll hit it, since we missed last year. But you have MicroStrategy, you have ETFs, you have the removal of the barrier, you have nation states, and what else? There's just so much going on, like real adoption of Bitcoin. So I just can't see it not hitting 1 million this year. And the other thing is, you see a lot of people predicting prices, right? They like to be cautious and realistic and say, yeah, it can get to 150. It can get to 200. It can get to 250. Because I think they want to sound reasonable. Nobody wants to be the crazy guy saying it's going to 10x, like me. They want to be, I'm a serious person with realistic projections. But Bitcoin is not a realistic thing. It's a zero-sum game. Either you're going to use Bitcoin or you're going to starve. So it's all or none. And when you get to different levels, like when you get to 100K, when you get to 100K, it's different, right? When you get to 200K, the world again looks very, very different. Just close your eyes and imagine, what does the world look like when Bitcoin is at 500K? That's you're reaching half of gold's market cap at that point. That will demonetize gold if it doesn't get demonetized earlier, because there's talk of the US selling gold to buy Bitcoin to fund their reserves, because that would take out their enemies who have been accumulating gold for the last decade. right? But disregard that. Bitcoin is sitting at 500K. We are the second largest asset now, behind gold. It's a very different landscape. And at that point, do you think most people would still want to sell their Bitcoin to get fiat? Or would most people now insist on being paid in Bitcoin? I think it's the latter. So from there, you just 2x.
Yeah.
And then you're number one. So it's confusing. And I would say the breakdown is this. It's a glass of water. It's kind of at the halfway mark. You can look at it as half full or half empty. So the Bitcoin law has been softened, or you can say neutered a bit. They've amended it to comply with the IMF agreement, almost to the letter. So everything they said in the IMF agreement, they've amended it. But I think the key thing is the amendments leave the door kind of open. It's ambiguous. So there is still a Bitcoin law, but Bitcoin is no longer a currency. And it is legal tender, but it is now voluntary. So what does that mean exactly? It means Bitcoin is legal tender. There's no capital gains tax still.
Okay.
There's another line in there that says you can use Bitcoin. The government can't now. So there is this Bitcoin law. Bitcoin is legal tender. But what is a legal tender without enforcement? Not that there was before. It always has been voluntary. So you can look at it both ways. Like, some people are reacting very strongly and saying, they capitulated, they bent the knee to the IMF and, because they sold us out, and they're very disillusioned. And then you have the promoters of El Salvador and Bukele, and they're saying, yeah, we won. We're going to take the money and buy Bitcoin with IMF money. But I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Samson Mow concludes by restating his audacious position regarding the future of Bitcoin. He contends that Bitcoin will inevitably reach $1 million with the help of MicroStrategy, ETFs, nation-state adoption, and the removal of significant obstacles. According to Samson, Bitcoin operates on an all-or-nothing premise. It will either dominate or become irrelevant, despite the fact that many analysts make cautious and reasonable predictions. The overwhelming weight of the evidence supports its rise. He asks viewers to consider how the world may appear at various Bitcoin price points. The attitude of the market changes at $100,000. The impact on the financial system begins at $200,000. At $500,000, Bitcoin's market capitalization equals half that of gold, which could lead to a shift in central banks' preferences toward Bitcoin over gold. Some even hypothesize that the United States may purposefully damage geopolitical adversaries by selling gold to purchase Bitcoin. Samson also talks about El Salvador's Bitcoin policy, which has generated controversy due to changes made to comply with IMF commitments. Samson thinks the modifications are more about strategic adaptability than capitulation, despite the fact that some people interpret them as a retreat. However, there is no capital gains tax on Bitcoin. It is still accepted as legal cash in El Salvador. However, enforcement is now optional. This allows for additional development without complete desertion. Samson concludes by stating that President Bukele's top concern is the long-term stability of his nation, and that obtaining IMF financing may be a prerequisite for ensuring the uptake of Bitcoin and economic expansion. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you thought his viewpoint was helpful so you don't miss any updates. We'd love to know what you think about the future of cryptocurrency markets, so please share your ideas in the comments section. We appreciate your time and hope to see you in the next video.